Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yan Dilenuku, and I'll be facilitating our conversation on using science and sustainability to feed the next generation. So we're focusing on food security. I've got two amazing ladies with me, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves. I'm going to start with you, Nima. Tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and the business that you're in.
Hi everyone, my name is Nima. I run a company called Blue Lobster, which is a digital marketplace for sustainable fishermen. Basically, we cut out on average 4 to 5 middlemen from the industry, and the fishermen get a better price, like twice as much as usual, and the customers get a fresher produce.
Thank you so much.
Fantastic.
Michelle?
Hello, my name is Michelle Egger. I'm the CEO and co-founder of BIOMILQ, where we're using cell culture technology, biotechnology, to produce human milk outside of the body. So using human mammary cells to create breast milk outside of the body.
Awesome. I think you're both doing interesting. Personally, you've broadened my scope of thinking. I think when we speak about agriculture in the country, we focus on your staple food, and you're doing something pretty interesting using science, but also technology. Let's start with you, Nima. Why seafood? Why that particular challenge that you're trying to solve in seafood sustainability?
So I think seafood is overlooked a lot. It's a really highly regulated market because seafood is one of the last things that we actually go out and we hunt it on an industrial scale. So if you imagine that the fishermen are going out into the oceans, they're pulling stuff up, they're taking stuff from our nature, but we don't think about it necessarily like that when we talk about food. We just consider it like the same as chicken or vegetables that we usually farm and have more control over. So the difficulties in the fishing industry are actually huge because we need to control how much we're harvesting from nature. As well as how we're harvesting, so we're not damaging the local ecosystems.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Michelle, you believe that in order to make the world a healthier and a better place, we must begin with solutions for better infant feeding options. Why is that the case?
Yeah. So just to clear it up, I'm not a mom. I've never breastfed. I don't do this work from personal experience. It's because I truly believe the first 1,000 days of life are the most impactful on the rest of our lives as human beings. And it's overlooked, frankly. We continue to encourage parents to breastfeed when they can, but the reality of being a modern parent in this world is that you need other solutions to supplement if you're going to participate in the economy, especially women, right? And so modernly, we see that breastfeeding is falling short in a majority of countries in the world, and human nutrients are what fuel our musculoskeletal development, our cognitive development, our immunological development in the first 3 years of life. That first 1,000 days is an exponential curve of growth, and we miss out on that if we don't have the opportunity to receive human nutrients. So as we think about how we're going to solve planetary boundary challenges along with human nutrition being a human right, infant nutrition is squarely in the middle where we have to focus to be able to better empower generations to grow and thrive.
Yeah, maybe talk a little bit about the process of actually producing synthetic milk. Somebody might be listening in and they're like, wait, maybe there's something I can try in Botswana or in Africa, or partner or collaborate with you. What's the actual process behind this?
Yeah, so one, it's not synthetic. It's naturally produced. So we actually use human mammary cells either from the body or from milk. These cells are like your skin cells. They're epithelial. They like to form really thin layers. And so we give them a 3D construct to behave just as they would in the body, where they actually pull in nutrients from one side, turn on their biosynthetic pathways, secrete 2,500 plus molecules simultaneously that make up milk. And they do that in then a space where we can pull that off, where it's never exposed to the media, which represents kind of a woman's blood, typically in the milk production process. So it sounds a little bit like pigs flying, maybe in comparison. Ooh, that sounds dangerous over there. In comparison to some of the other companies here, but frankly, we're leveraging cellular technology that has existed. We use this to make monoclonal antibodies, for instance, which in the era of COVID, you probably all have some familiarity with now. We're just applying it in a very novel and different way, and frankly, utilizing cells that frequently we only ever looked at for cancer research. We've only ever looked at women's tissue when it's unhealthy, not when it's healthy. So we're really pioneering in a new space of thinking differently about how cell culture can be utilized to advance human life.
Awesome. Let's focus on you and the platform that you have. You focus on traceability of the seafood, where it was taken, how it was fished, and ultimately how it's processed and where it's from. Why is that particularly important in the seafood industry? I know in our diamond industry, we also have the same, where there's a need to track where our diamonds were mined and where they come from, simply because of the conversation around blood diamonds around the world. So the consumer is interested in knowing that the diamond that I'm putting on, I'm actually empowering communities. So why is it important? Why was it important for you to have those particular features on your platform?
Yeah, so as I said, unlike with diamonds, I think unfortunately customers probably aren't interested enough. So as much as it's nice to give that on to the customer, the storytelling is just the fluffier aspect, really. So when it comes to seafood, there are two major things within sustainability. It's how much we fish and how we fish it. And how much we fish, we can't control as like a private company. That's the government's. But what we can do is make sure that the governments have the right information. So say that the government says, okay, the stock levels of cod are at such a point where you can go out and get 200 kilos right now. And you get 100 kilos, and you get 50 kilos, and you get 20, and you get 30. The only way the government can actually make sure that we're keeping stocks at a healthy level is making sure that you report back to me, that you're saying, oh, I caught 50 today, I caught 20. And if we don't have that information, we don't have a fighting chance to actually take care of our oceans. So that's why traceability is so important, specifically in the seafood industry.
Okay, awesome. Michelle, let's talk about you. I'm really interested if you see yourself scaling BIOMILQ to Africa. I think your solution is really relevant in Africa. Do you see yourself scaling to Africa? And if so, what sort of support would you need?
Yeah. Well, two things I want to highlight. One is that Botswana is a really interesting case to talk about infant nutrition, because historically women here, because of high levels of HIV transmission, have been discouraged from breastfeeding their babies and encouraged to use formula, which, while formula helps a child survive, frankly, when you have water sources, especially in dry seasons, that can contaminate it, you have really high infant mortality. And every parent, of course, wants to avoid that. So as we think about better infant nutrition options for the families of Africa, I think Botswana is a really unique case to think about, where there's absolutely an appetite for different products, and it can have a really profound effect. But the only way a company like ours can exist here and can produce here is with really deep technical talent. So while it's been really fun to meet lots of people with a smartphone and a great idea, we need really deep STEM education in the spaces of Africa, where there's a lot of development and hard technical skills. What we're doing looks like drug development, and it requires us to really have people who are passionate in biology and science, who are working on engineering basics. And I'd highlight, for instance, in South Africa, Mazi Meat is producing bush meat in a lab, for instance, and they're producing beef and other high-value crops, and they have a really hard time finding talent. So if this is something that interests you, or you have people in your life who are scientifically inclined, cellular agriculture is a growing space, and we need more really bright, well-trained minds to join us if we're going to expand globally.
Let's look at the structure of BIOMILQ, the type of talent that you have right now in your organization. What does it look like?
Yeah, we are all scientists and engineers, essentially. I got an MBA, so I've almost lost my scientist card, but we're really deeply technical, and we do this work because we're very mission-driven. I mean, you think about low-income consumers right now in the world spend $1.3 trillion on junk food every year, which is far outpaces all global health aid that exists in nutrition. It is a huge market. There are people spending trillions, US dollars, trillions on really low quality products. And so my team is especially driven by the idea that we can create innovative products at price points that can expand, which a lot of scientists don't get to escape the lab to do something that impactful. And so we have a team that's really driven by the idea that we can truly make disruptive change, and it can be for all of humankind if we can scale in a way that it becomes accessible to populations globally.
Awesome, thank you so much. Nima, let's go to you as well. Do you see yourself scaling a solution like Blue Lobster to Africa? And what sort of support would you need?
Yeah, so absolutely, we want to come to Africa. Botswana maybe is not the most relevant place because it's landlocked. Because we're landlocked, exactly. So what we're in early conversations actually in Somalia and Kenya. So East Africa is probably going to be the first interesting place. Now, we spoke about traceability before. We're the first company to integrate directly into our fishing ministry's quota counting system through an API. So when someone uploads fish to our platform, it gets reported to the ministry immediately, and that's the beauty of data. What we're seeing in markets that we're looking at right now in Africa is that there's not that technical infrastructure built from the government side yet. So we're kind of building this data set from the beginning. So that's a big difference. What we need in order to come here is understand how to culturally adapt our products. So we have an app right now, and due to connectivity issues, that's not always going to be the right thing for a market like this. So we probably need some external funding to help product develop something that's a bit more low tech, but we definitely are interested.
Awesome. Michelle, I want to go back to you. I think what's interesting about your story, I think relative to what's probably happening in Botswana, it takes quite a bit of time for you to move from ideation to raise funding and to ultimately scale your solution. What I picked, that's something pretty interesting about BIOMILQ is that you started in 2020. And already you've managed to raise approximately $25 million in what you're doing. Let's talk about the process of acquiring funding. How was that for you, and some of the lessons you can share from that experience?
Yeah, we're really lucky in that we're working on a technology that's incredibly disruptive, and that value is seen by investors, both from an impact perspective and a capital perspective. And so I'd highlight, we heard from Patrice a day or two ago. He's a part of a fund, Breakthrough Energy Ventures, which backs low carbon and high impact solutions. He's an LP. Breakthrough Energy Ventures raised our first seed round beside us for the work that we do. And we're lucky to have really impact focused investors, partially because we've really vetted how we think about taking capital. So actually in our Series A raise, which we closed in 2021, we used partnership criteria. So we went out to the marketplace and said, you have to have at least one female partner in your fund, you have to have 10% of your portfolio that's disadvantaged founders, and you have to have a mandate around impact, whether that's environmental sustainability, nutrition, or human health. And that really narrows the aperture of VCs that exist, but we felt like there was no reason to even have discussions with funds that didn't start to meet that criteria, because they wouldn't understand the work that we're doing and why we do it. And while it's hard to turn good capital down, raising capital is like getting married many times, again, over and over. You really want to pick a good partner. And if you're going to find that they can't walk the walk in the way that you want them to and start to create the world that you want to participate in, they're not worth the capital anyway.
What about you, Nima? What are some of the challenges that you faced in your pursuit to facilitate sustainable production of seafood to retail? And what sort of support and partner organizations have you collaborated with to help you cross the bridge in terms of the challenges that you found in your journey?
Yeah, so the fishing industry is super old school, and in Denmark we say that the fishing industry is dirty, and it is. Denmark is a relatively low corrupt country, but the things that the biggest obstacles we honestly face are old school players who don't want the industry to be disrupted. Because when we're cutting out like 5 middlemen from an industry, there are people who are going to get pissed off, and that's just the way that happens when you're trying to make a big change, right? So the issues that we face are coming from the industry itself, and we're talking. Our fishermen are getting threatened. We're getting threatened. Our fish is getting stolen to harbors. Our boxes are being broken. We're talking like actual physical obstacles and, trying to get us out of deals. We had one of the biggest other buyers in Denmark called all the fishermen together to a big fisher meeting where he set them all down and he said, together with the 3 next biggest players, if anyone works with Blue Lobster, you can't work with any of us. So we're cutting you all off. It's an either or. And I was going to say, what we're lucky with is that fishermen are like really special types of people. So they get really stubborn. And when people tell them what to do, they don't want to do it. So it actually really backlashed for those players. The fishermen called us afterwards. They're like, this is bullshit. We're going to work with you guys. But I think, to your question, the partners that we've had, I know we spoke about the visibility, right? It means a lot that we can go to the media and we can get a platform to tell our story, because communicating out to the world that these are the obstacles that we're facing, that people are trying to boycott us and trying to keep us out when we're trying to make a positive difference for sustainability, for the livelihood of fishermen, people get pissed. And that spotlight actually does help. It means that players start leaving us alone, and that's what we've been able to see.
Thank you very much, ladies. I think that's it in terms of our panel. Maybe you have any last words that you want to share in terms of your outlook for both of your organizations. Michelle, I'll give you the floor to share.
Yeah, we have a lot of work to do, a lot of regulatory hurdle to establish. When you're feeding babies, you don't get to move fast and break things in the same way. But we're really honored and inspired always by the amount of support we receive. So if you want to chat with me about your own breastfeeding journey, find me. Or any words of encouragement or questions, we're always really open about how the technology works, because it's going to democratize the future of how we feed babies in this world.
Awesome. Nima?
Yeah, and we're starting to scale our company into new regions, and we're just hoping to help fishermen everywhere that are using sustainable practices to get a proper livelihood out of it, and the ones that aren't using sustainable practices will hopefully come over to us and start taking care of our seas properly. So if anyone has any ideas of how to get into new markets, we need a lot of local knowledge, because that's absolutely key working in an industry like ours. So come up and say hi.
Thank you so much, ladies, and thank you for your time and attention. Thank you.